Turn your head and look right at that furry, four-legged creature lounging in the corner of your room, or perhaps staring back at you with completely unbothered eyes at this very millisecond. It doesn't earn money to cover the household utilities. It flat out refuses to tidy up your living space. It spends its entire day carrying an arrogant, judgmental expression on its face, as if you inherited a massive financial debt to it from a previous reincarnation. And every once in a while, it will casually walk over and swat your expensive smartphone or glass cup straight off the table onto the hard floor, purely for its own cheap amusement. Yet, operating through some completely irrational psychological algorithm, you find this creature absolutely magnificent. You are totally willing to destroy your spine working overtime at your job just to secure enough funds for its premium salmon pate. You even voluntarily refer to yourself as a humble servant to a grand feline master. This wildly skewed, deeply unequal relationship has been operating inside human households for thousands of years. When you open traditional history textbooks, the crowd is always handed a perfectly neat, logical narrative. The old story claims that once upon a time, when humans invented farming, wild mice invaded our grain storehouses. Supposedly, our clever ancestors went out into the wilderness, caught wild cats, trained them to eliminate the pests, and transformed them into loyal, obedient household pets. It is a smooth, comforting script that gives humans all the control and strategic planning. Too bad that the moment behavioral anthropologists and molecular archaeologists began dissecting ancient feline remains, that comfortable, rosy narrative was torn into microscopic shreds. Science has validated a harsh reality that will cause you to question everything. Cats never actually became domesticated by humans. No ancient hunter ever planned to tame a wild cat. The reality of the wild is completely inverted. The cat actively executed a top-tier biological strategy to domesticate itself, or to put it more accurately, it formulated a blueprint to domesticate the human nervous system. How did this silent evolutionary invasion actually ignite? And what mechanical tricks did this four-legged machine deploy to force a species at the absolute top of the food chain to become its personal caretakers? To trace the origin of this operation, we have to board a flight back 9,500 years, landing on the Mediterranean island of Cyprus in the year 2004. At an ancient Neolithic archaeological site named Hilarokambos, scientists excavated a highly formal human grave. As they carefully brushed away the thick layers of ancient dirt, they were stunned to discover that resting directly alongside the human skeleton was the complete, carefully arranged skeleton of a small cat. This unexpected discovery dealt a massive blow to the old historical theory that ancient Egyptians were the first people to domesticate cats roughly 4,000 years ago. It turns out that from the very dawn of human settlement and agricultural civilization, the cat was already sitting right next to us. The biological blueprint of every single house cat sleeping on a modern sofa today can be traced directly back to a single genetic line, the Near Eastern wildcat, scientifically classified as Felis libica. But here is the structural anomaly in this evolutionary layout. Think about the dog. The dog evolved from the gray wolf, a highly social, pack-oriented animal that fundamentally understands hierarchy, submission, and loyalty to an alpha leader. This hard-coded psychology made it remarkably easy for early humans to utilize food and physical dominance to train wolves and command their absolute obedience. The Near Eastern wildcat, however, is a solitary hunter. They do not share territories, they do not have leaders, they possess zero biological desire for social interaction, and they are intensely hostile toward any living entity larger than themselves. From a survival standpoint, trying to take an aggressive, independent, and antisocial killer and convincing it to sit quietly in your lap is completely unnatural. It is a diabolical system conflict that no primitive Chun Noi technique possessed the data to program. So, what was the critical variable that pulled this solitary predator out of the deep woods to live rent-free in human settlements? It all started when the agricultural revolution exploded, and our ancestors made a massive systemic mistake. They engineered the world's very first centralized grain storehouses. The moment those primitive silos were packed with tons of wild wheat and barley, it triggered an ecological phenomenon never before witnessed in the history of natural selection: a catastrophic population explosion of rodents. Millions of wild mice from across the plains caught the scent of easy calories, invading human villages to feed and multiply completely out of control. This massive concentration of rodents transformed human agricultural villages into a biological goldmine, an absolute paradise for a small, nocturnal predator like the Near Eastern wildcat. The wildcats looked out from the tree line, and their neural networks ran a highly practical economic equation. Why should I exhaust my caloric reserves sprinting through a dense forest all night just to catch one tiny bird, when I can simply stroll over to that human camp and enjoy a nonstop, all-you-can-eat rodent buffet? The cat executed a highly calculated tactical retreat, shifting its physical hunting radius from the dangerous wilderness directly to the perimeter of human grain stores. During this prehistoric window, our ancestors viewed the arrival of these cats as an absolute miracle. Humans watched these small predators slaughter the pests that were threatening their entire winter food supply, and the best part was that the cats did all this intensive labor without demanding a single calorie of human compensation. A silent, mutual agreement was forged based on raw survival self-interest. Humans maintained an ecosystem packed with mice, and cats cleared out the pests. But here is the most tragicomic twist of this evolutionary game. While dogs allowed humans to completely modify their physical skeletons, skull shapes, and brains to fit specific industrial tasks like herding or guarding, the cat flat out refused to alter its factory settings. If you take the DNA of a modern house cat into a genetic laboratory and map it against the DNA of a 10,000-year-old wild fossil, you will find they are virtually indistinguishable. There has been no significant alteration to their internal biological hardware. The size of a house cat's brain has not shrunk like the brain of a domesticated pig or a dog. Their razor-sharp claws, forward-facing night vision eyes, and independent predatory instincts remain 100% intact. The cute feline purring on your chest right now is not a domesticated animal. It is a highly optimized, untamed apex killer trapped inside a 4-kilogram frame. It has simply made a tactical decision to temporarily tolerate your presence inside its territory. And the primary weapon they developed to achieve this cognitive dominance over humanity is a top-tier piece of neurological hardware designed to hack our Thuy doing. Behavioral scientists have uncovered a deeply unsettling truth regarding the familiar meow sound. In the wilderness, fully mature adult cats never speak to each other using meows. Felines communicate with their own species through an advanced system of scent markings, specific tail postures, or intense low-frequency growls. The solitary instance of a meow occurring in the natural wild is a defenseless kitten crying out to its mother to demand milk. Yet, the moment cats stepped across the domestic-human threshold, they executed a brilliant piece of software code. They extended that infant crying vocalization across their entire adult life cycle, reserving it exclusively for a single target audience: human beings. And it gets even more diabolical. Audio engineers, plotting the frequency graphs of a cat's demanding food purr, discovered that wrapped inside that innocent, soft vocalization is a sharp, high-frequency acoustic peak, oscillating precisely between 400 and 500 hertz. Do you know what that specific frequency bandwidth mirrors in nature? It is the exact acoustic signature of a human newborn infant screaming because it is starving. When your cat sits next to your face at 5 in the morning and begins to cry, it isn't just making a random animal noise. It is deploying a specialized biological weapon. It is broadcasting a synthetic replica of a human baby's cry straight into your brain's auditory cortex. This sound automatically triggers an unconditioned neural reflex within your nervous system, flooding your body with immediate anxiety, intense restlessness, and an overwhelming primal urge to nurture and feed whatever is making that sound. Your conscious, logical willpower is completely bypassed. Your brain is hacked, forcing you to jump out of bed and open a can of expensive wet food just to purchase a few hours of absolute silence. The cat also commands an ultimate visual asset: The anatomical proportions of a cat's face, the giant circular eyes, the wide rounded forehead, and the small button nose align perfectly with what evolutionary psychologists call the baby schema of the human brain. Nature handed this solitary forest killer an aesthetic layout that looks exactly like a human child that never ages, forcing our prehistoric software to automatically activate a defensive, caretaking response toward them. This advanced system of psychological manipulation completely redirected the trajectory of human history. In ancient Egypt, the cat climbed all the way from the trash heaps of grain stores straight to the golden thrones of the pharaohs. The Egyptians became so heavily obsessed that they engineered an entire state religion dedicated to the goddess Bastet, depicted with the physical head of a cat. They codified brutal legal systems, stating that anyone who accidentally or intentionally ended the life of a feline would face immediate capital punishment. When a cat died of old age inside an Egyptian household, the entire family had to execute a bizarre public mourning ritual. Every family member had to completely shave off their own eyebrows to signal their profound psychological trauma and grief. Feline corpses were wrapped in premium linens, embalmed with the rarest aromatic oils, and chone cut inside royal state cemeteries alongside thousands of elaborate bronze statues. The cat successfully transformed one of the greatest empires on Earth into a collective network of dedicated caretakers, spanning from this world straight into the afterlife. This extraordinary chronicle of coevolution exposes a deeply tragic truth about human civilization. While every other domesticated animal had to sacrifice its flesh, its blood, or its muscle, toiling until absolute exhaustion in our fields, just to buy a structural slot inside human society, the cat chose a far lazier and infinitely more elegant route. They simply sat completely still, operating their infant facial structure and running their baby cry acoustic simulation to completely hijack the emotional reward centers of the human brain. They accepted a peace treaty with humanity, keeping their wild nature as a solitary killer completely intact while receiving the ultimate evolutionary reward: free premium calories, clean water, and high-tech medical care for life, entirely free of charge. And you, sitting there, tapping away at a keyboard every day to secure enough income to buy its litter boxes, are simply continuing a caretaking ritual that has run continuously for 10,000 years. Is that Grand Master curled up sleeping in the corner of your room, quietly mocking your daily office grind right now? Drop a sharp, humorous comment down below, and let me know your thoughts on this biological takeover. And look, if you don't want your cognitive systems to completely freeze, missing out on the next deep unraveling of our world's strangest hidden systems next week, make sure you smash that subscribe button immediately. I'm off to go clean out the sandbox for my ruler. See you in the next script.